Hi, Stacey Murphy here with a quick video on garden harvest bouquets. So this is one of my favorite things to do for myself for a couple of reasons. So I love to make bouquets because number one, I'm bringing all that food out from the garden and into the kitchen, and I'm creating beautiful bouquets. So not only is it preserving the food so that it's ready for me to eat, and it's making sure that it stays hydrated and it stays beautiful, but also it's kind of food for my soul. I look at my table and it's got bouquets all over it, and it warms my heart. And so that's a different kind of nourishment that my food brings to me. So they're gorgeous is one reason why I'm building all these bouquets. And then the second reason is that I'm actually using them to preserve my garden harvest and ensure that I eat everything in a timely manner and it doesn't go bad. What I want you to do is I want you to go outside and I want you to look at colors, textures, heights and sizes of things, and see where things might want to be intermatched, right? So I like to think about things in terms of simple pairings. Like I'll keep a simple kind of color palette, like, okay, maybe I want to stay in an orange purple color palette, maybe orange, purple, and white. Maybe I want to stay in like a pink and purple color range, maybe some blue thrown in there. And then I'll go out and I'll see what I can put together into that bouquet that makes sense for that color palette. So another way I could think about it is I could think about texture, and I could say, okay, I want something that's like spiky and I want something else that's soft, and then I could put those things together. Another way to think about it would be to think about, and this is the way a lot of people think about the bouquets, is they say, okay, I'm going to start with the focal piece. So what is the thing that I want people to look at in the bouquet? And so I've got a great example of a focal point. This one is a very large focal point, right? Oh, look. It's like eating me. So this is a bird of paradise for those of you who aren't familiar, and this is in the garden outside. Very easy to grow. It just grows like crazy. And so that's a really phenomenal focal point. This is hard not to be a focal point in a bouquet, right? The only way to make this not the focal point in the bouquet is to have like 200 of these, and then they all become just background for each other, and it's all just orange, purple, and green, and there's no more focal point. So okay, so let's say, you take a flower and maybe it's your focal point. It doesn't have to be a flower as a focal point. So a lot of people think that there is a focal point and then the rest is kind of filler around it. And a lot of people think of filler as something that's like green, and this is a beautiful dill bouquet, or by itself it's a bouquet, or it's just a bunch of dill, right? And so this dill could actually be a filler for that flower, or it could be its own bouquet, right? Okay, so that's one idea. You put together a bouquet and it's got maybe a focal point and it's got some filler around it, right? So that's one way to build a bouquet. You might decide that instead of having just one flower as a focal point, you might have 3 flowers as a focal point and then some filler around that. So you can take this idea and build on it, and you might have 3 sunflowers as kind of the main focal point, with maybe you have that dill around it, and then maybe you have a couple other highlights in there as well. And that could be a really simple bouquet to put together. Another way to build a bouquet, and this is a slightly different way to think about it, you could think about what's above the vase and what's below the vase. So you could have a giant jar that's glass and you can see what's in that jar, right? So why not, when you harvest your carrots, why not make them the focal point of your bouquet? Now, just because you have a whole bunch of filler material doesn't mean you can't make a bouquet. I personally love herbal bouquets. They're fragrant, they're beautiful, and you can just throw together 3 different types of herbs in one single container, and they're big and they're bushy, and that way they will stay fresh, they'll stay hydrated, and whenever you're ready to cook with them, they're right there on the table for you to use. One of the principles that a lot of floral arrangers use is this idea that things look better in odd numbers. And so oftentimes you can just put together a couple things, just a few things, makes a beautiful bouquet because the 3 things are just naturally balanced. So here's one idea of a very simple bouquet. It's beautiful and it's just 3 simple things. Taking that a step further, when you're putting together a big bouquet like this one, oftentimes you'll see there's one or 3 focal points coming out of the center of the bouquet, And then you have the filler around it is composed of, let's say, 7 of one type of flower, 3 of another type of flower, 3 of some sort of filler. And you can use fillers like basil is a really good filler. You can use euphorbia if you have that in your garden. So there's lots of different materials that you can use, and you're only really limited by your creativity. And just a couple quick tips on how to keep your floral bouquets as long as possible, keep them fresh. So one of the things you want to do, of course, is you want to get the plants out of the garden. You want to make sure they're cooled off. So if they're vegetables, you want to make sure that you hydrocool them and make sure that all the field heat is out of them. And then if there's anything that has stems that are going to go into the water and they are flower stems or herb stems, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you have a portion of clear stem so that that part goes in the water and this part above where the leaves are is not going to go in the water. So this is a beautiful piece of lemon catnip. And so what I want to do is take off any leaves down here, and I can dry them and use them for tea or whatever I want to do. But I want to do that so that this leaf material, if this ends up in the water, you've oftentimes seen water that turns all foggy and has, cruddy qualities to it. What that is basically the water is taking on sort of bacteria and fungal issues from the plant material. And so you don't want that to happen. You just want the clean stem inside of the water. So you just pull that stuff off and dry it. So that's for things like herbs and flowers especially that have a lot of greenery. Don't use that greenery necessarily as the filler. You can strip that greenery off and use something else as filler that has a more solid stem. So that's one thing that's going to help keep your bouquet fresh as long as possible. The other thing is to clean out that water periodically. So if you start to see it, turn a little foggy, you want to go in and change that water out, freshen it up, make sure no leaves are in that water, right? So those are two things that are going to keep your bouquets really fresh. And then what I like to do is, as things are ready to eat, I like to take them off and eat them and leave everything else in the arrangement and just rearrange it a little bit just to make it look good again. And of course, it's going to help if you start with a clean and sterile container to put your bouquet in. If you start with a container that's got some mud in it, that's got some maybe fungal or bacterial issues with it already, your flowers aren't going to last as long, or your harvest isn't going to last as long. So you want to make sure that you clean and sterilize those containers first. You're really only limited by your creativity. So go on, get wild, have a lot of fun. Look for color, look for texture, look for size, look for shape, and look for interesting ways to put those things together. And remember, there's nothing too weird for a garden bouquet. Just go try it.